Okay, today I want to go over arrays. Arrays in programming are often thought of as a variable, but a variable is different. A variable is something that is like a named location in memory that holds a value. So an int holds a value, a double holds a value, a string even, which is a non-primitive, a more advanced data type, it holds a value. But an array is more of a data structure. An array holds multiple values, and that's really the key to what arrays are, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Arrays and how they can be manipulated, how we can make one, and that kind of stuff. So what I have over here is a visualization area where I'm using Microsoft Excel, because arrays are really nothing more than a spreadsheet, and I want to kind of talk about why that is. It's like a table. So let's start by making an array of numbers. So I'm going to make an integer array, and that's what those two brackets right there mean. The square brackets indicate that not only am I making a variable, I am making an array that's going to hold on to multiple values. So I'll tell you what, let's back up for a second actually. Let's make an integer variable x and set it equal to 6. Okay? If I were to have that line of code, that line is perfectly legal, it totally compiles, and basically what we're doing is we're making a variable called x that's going to hold on to a value of 6. Over here, if we were to visualize that, there's really not a whole lot to do. I don't have an array, so I'd have to kind of go down here and say, well, the variable name would be x, and the data type would be int, because that's what it's holding. It doesn't have an index. It would only have a value. In this case, it'd be 6. And so these would be my headings, and this is kind of what is involved in this right here. If I were to change this to a 2, then instead of having a 2 there, or a 6 there, we'd have a 2. Okay, there's not a whole lot to that. And similarly, if I were to put the word double right there and say double, and instead of x, maybe we called it mynum or something like that, and we have a number called 2.54, then that works too and compiles. And if we go down here, now if we were to change this stuff, the variable name is mynum, the data type is a double, and the value is 2.54. Pretty straightforward. With an array, what we're going to do is these brackets indicate that we're going to hold on to multiple numbers. So maybe I have an array called mynums, like so. And notice if I were to set that equal to 6, it says, whoa, 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 what are you trying to do here? You can't do that. Because an integer array holds multiple values. So let's get rid of this stuff here. Let's not confuse anybody. And what we're going to do is we're going to make an integer array that holds on to, let's say, 4 numbers. So 4, 8, 10, and 3. They don't have to be in any order, they're just numbers. So if I were to do that, you can see no errors and it compiles. So what did I just do? Well, what I did is I made an array. The array name is mynums. The data type is not int bracket bracket, it's just int. Because what's happening is the array is holding on to integer values. So what we're saying here is we want to make an array that is only allowed to hold on to integers. You can't be a decimal and be part of this array. That's what that's saying. And then over here, we have index and value. Before I do that, I'm just going to be a little bit too OCD with my spreadsheet here. Make sure that these are titles, okay? So the array name is mynums, the data type is int, and here is where things are going to get a little bit different. We know the values in the array are 4, 8, 10, and 3. The index is indicative of where we can find them in the array. And so here's the mistake people make. They say, well, number 4 is in the first spot, 8 is in the second spot, and this is third and this is fourth. And this is wrong. That isn't wrong. You always start at 0 in Java, like so. If you were to ask what the length of that array is, the length, if I can type it, length of that array is 4, because there are 4 things in the array, but each one has an index of 0 or 1 or 2 or 3. There is no index 4, and that's very important. So my array winds up looking just like that. It's a 4-compartment array. And the index, by the way, is something that we know, but really it's not part of the array. If I go and get the value of the array, if I ask what is in like the spot 2 of the array, it's going to give me back a 10. So if I were to do over here a system.out.println of mynums, let's start with that actually. I'm going to start with that, and this isn't exactly what I want, but I want you to see what happens when I run this. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to run the program, and the terminal window pops up, and look what I get. I get that, which is not what I want, because what the program will try to do here is spit out the whole data structure. And so this is the computer's way of saying there's an array here, it's an object, and I don't understand how to put that out so that you're going to understand it. That's my impression of the computer talking to the human. So the computer's trying to tell us something, but we don't know what it is. So what we have to do is be real specific. And here we have to say, I want to know what's in the second spot of the array. So I go back here and I'm going to clear this. I'm going to compile this. And now what you'll find is we will get a little better communication. So if I run that now and I open the terminal window, you can see a 10 pops up because 10 is in the second spot of the array. Now, this is one way to make an array. I'm going to show you another one as well, just so you've seen a couple. I can also say I want to make an integer array called mynums, and then I can up here say that it is an integer array that's going to hold on to, say, 4 things. So what I'm going to do here is the exact same thing, just in a different way. This line here says I'm going to make an integer array called mynums, so it's going to be an array. We know that's multiple values. It's going to hold on to integers only. It's going to be called mynums, and it's going to hold 4 things. Okay? And then what I can do is I can go like this. Mynums bracket 0 bracket equals, and if I want to put the 4 in there, I'm going to put a 4 right here. And then I can go paste, 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 and just change a few things like so. So I can manually put all of the values into the array like this as well. And this is useful for when I'm coding sometimes and I want to put things into an array, but I might not know what they are at the very start of the program. So if you were to write a program that accepts input from a user and maybe you want to put it in a certain spot in the array, that would kind of be how you do it. And so then if you were to do another system.out.println, having trouble typing tonight, mynums, and let's spit out the, the third. So according to what we're seeing here, we should see the third thing come out. And if we clear the window again, Control K, compile, run, then what you're going to see is exactly that. I wish it would pop up over my screen, but there you go, there's your 3. Okay? So an array is multiple things. And if I were to go here and type the word double, now I've just made an array that's going to hold decimal values. And if I actually, this will still work because integers they can be doubles. And so if I were to run it now, what you're going to see, I won't clear it again, but if you run it now, watch the difference. Here we go. See? So 3 is the integer representation of 3, and then this is the decimal or the double representation of 3. But now if I wanted to put, a whole bunch of decimals in my array, I could do that. I can do other things. I can make a Boolean array, and so what I'm pointing out here is that An array is not a data type. An array is a data structure that will hold different types. So if you tell me I'm going to make a Boolean array, call it anything you want, we'll call it B, and I say I'm going to put stuff into B, well, Boolean's either true or false. So I can put true in the first spot, I can put false in the second spot, and I can put false in the third, and maybe true back in the last one. And that's fine, because we have a Boolean array, right? I said right here, we're going to make an array that's going to be a Boolean array, and here's me loading the array with whatever it is I want. So an array is not a data type. I've said it like 3 times now. An array is a data structure. So over here, if I was going to change my little visual to match what we have over here, the array name is now B, which is not the best name, but for the purposes of learning. The type is Boolean, and the indices will not change at all. And here we would have true, and here we would have false, and here we would have false, and here we would have true, and the length wouldn't change. So if I were to print that out, if I were to run this the way it is, we want what's in the third spot, we should see a true, and I'm pretty confident that we will. There you go. So that's kind of the general concept of what an array is. Now, we don't really want, if I want to, that's not a very big array, and a lot of times we want to put things in an array in a different way. We want to put things into an array in a different way. So let's say that I had, an integer array called, again, nums, and, yeah, there we go. And that's going to be a new integer array of 10 things. And what if I said, put 10, let's start with, yeah, sure, 10, 20, 30, ... all the way up to 100 into the array. How do we do that? I mean, we could sit here and go, well, okay, nums bracket 0 is 10, and then, just keep typing it in. But that's not very fun, and, this is a 10 spot array, but if I were to make a 100 spot array, I wouldn't want to type them in, so there's got to be a better way. And this is where arrays go hand in hand with loops. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a loop that will actually put stuff into the array for me. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, we know how a for loop kind of typically goes. We write a loop that starts with something usually at 0, and in this case we've got 10 things in the array, so we're going to go less than 10, and we're going to go and increase x every time. So I mean, this is kind of just the general structure of a for loop, and you've seen this before. So we're going to do something 10 times, and x is going to go from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9, and then it's going to stop. When it gets to 9, it's not going to go to 10 because 10 is not less than 10. So this condition has to be true in order to keep running the loop. So here, if I were to type the line nums bracket x equals x, like that. That line right there, it looks like it's a fairly complicated line. What we're actually saying is we want to take the value of x and we want to put it into the array at that spot. So in other words, when x is 0, remember this is a loop, x is going to change as we go through the loop. The first time we go through the loop, x is 0, we're going to take 0, and we're going to put it into the 0th spot of the array nums. So now that we kind of understand what's going on, let's go back over here. We're going to change our array names to nums. It's a data type that is an int, and now we've expanded a few things. So we're going to delete that content. We're going to, I think we're probably going to wind up bashing the length out of the way here, but there we go. Now we've got one too many. Delete. So we have an array that's called nums. It holds integers, and there are 10 spots available, 0 through 9. Again, the length is 10. And if we were to run this code, what we're saying is we want to take the xth value and put it in the xth spot of nums. So in other words, 0 would wind up here, 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's what we're going to wind up with. So if I were to run my code, compile, I'm going to clear this window here so it's gone, right click. So I run my code and, oops, terminal window, look, it's blank. Why is it blank? Well, don't forget, everything that we're doing is in memory. So when we declare this variable called nums, what we're doing is we're taking up a spot in the computer's memory, but the computer's memory is not automatically shown to the user. We are manipulating the computer's memory, but nowhere here did we actually show what is going on in the array. So we have to get used to that as well. If we want to print the array, we've already seen that unfortunately it's not just going to be as easy as going system.out.println nums. When I did that, remember I got some junk that I couldn't understand. But what I can do is I can print out each individual spot of the array. So I'm going to write some code here. So I declare the array, I put stuff into the array, and then once I'm done, this is a line of code just to prove to myself I want to see what is actually in the array. So again, declare, load the array, print out the contents. So now we should see exactly what we have over here. Let's see if we do. Main, run it, and this is silly. I'm going to move that terminal. There we go. Look, 0 through 9. So it worked. Fantastic. So that's great, but unfortunately it's not 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, so we got to work on changing these numbers. How can we change these numbers? Well, we notice that it starts at 10. It doesn't start at 0, and it goes up by 10. So how can we make it go up by 10 every time? Well, we seem to want multiples of 10. So what if we were to put a times 10 right there? Well, let's think about that for a minute. 0 times 10 is 0, so we get a 0 in the first spot. That's not what we want, but let's go with it. 1 times 10 is 10. 2 times 10 is 20. So I think this is going to get us somewhere. Let's take a look at how close it gets us, because we don't have to get it perfect right away. We can see what kind of difference that makes. So we're going to run this code, and look, 0 through 90. So we're super close. We just got, we're off by 10. So now what we can do is just say, well, wait a minute. We want to do this because this, really worked. We almost got what we wanted, except we want to take the result of all that. And for each one of these, we want to add 10. And now we can kind of run it in our head here. Like if x is 0, well, 0 times 10 is 0, plus 10 is 10. So the 0th spot would be 10. That's what we want. And then 20, right? If this was, next time through the loop, x is 1, well, 1 times 10 is 10, plus 10 is 20. So by adding that, I think that this is going to work. So what we're doing is we're manipulating the array. We're playing with, we know that x is going to go from 0 to 10, but we can do math on that number and make other numbers populate the array. So if I run it now, you should see exactly what we want here in the output. And there we go. Okay. And so just by making that simple change, now the values are going to go 10, 20, and so on. And the length is still 10. Okay, so now that we've seen that, the structure of these arrays is always the same. If I want to make a string array, what if I want words? Well, if I want to make a string array, I'll call it my words, and maybe I want a string array of, let's just do 5 things. And maybe this, often with string arrays, we're not holding on to, with numbers, it's easy to do the math. But let's say we wanted to have an array where we wanted to, hold on to our favorite movies. So I could start just typing in my words, bracket 0 equals Saving Private Ryan. It's my favorite movie, I think. And, you know, I could keep going. Probably did too many of these. Let's do 3 just to save time in this little video here. And we'll type in some other. I like Fight Club, and I like Inception. So if I do that, and just be careful here, because when you copy and paste, you always be careful what to change. I want you to see what's going to happen. So I'm going to copy that, put that there, and everything looks good. So you'll notice that, you know, I've got no problems, right? It says no syntax errors here at the bottom. If I go over here and change everything just for the visual, I've now got an array called my words. It's going to hold string values and not just numbers. And since there's only 3 things in it, that means it's going to be a very short array. So all this stuff's going to go away, and the length is going to be 3. Okay, and so here we're set up. According to what I've done here, this would be, I'm just going to use short forms here, Saving Private Ryan, this would be Fight Club, and this would be Inception. Okay, those are just short forms, that would be the full name. And so it looks great, right? And now I just want to check it, make sure that works, so I go here and I'm going to, let me clear this first. So I clear this, and I'm going to run, and oh, look at this, I got an error. And so when I get these errors, I want to take a good look at what they are. It says Java Lang out of bounds exception. And then it says index 3 out of bounds for length 3. 3, eh? What's 3 got to? Well, there's 3 things in the array. And here I put 3 things, and oh, look at this. I've got a loop that says, hey, go from 0 all the way up to 10. And this is where people run into problems all the time. So instead of using a hard-coded number right here, what you want to do is say, I know there's an array called my words, and I want to go up to as many things that are in it. So basically you say, go to the length of my words and print stuff out. And this will save you, it will fix your problem. So if I run it now, you'll see that it should work. There you go. And further to that, if I were to go back and say, you know what, oh, I forgot a movie that I really like, I'm going to go back here and add, I don't know, I'm going to go back here and add City of God, and here I would have to change this to a 4 because now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 movies in there, so that's going to be a 4. And this will automatically adjust. So now I don't have to worry about going off the top of my array anymore. My code just was altered to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay? So that essentially is how arrays work. And you load them by putting stuff in like that. If you were to say for some reason that you only wanted 1 movie in the array, sure, you can do that. Maybe you do something like that. Or in fact, I think you can even just load 1. You can manipulate the arrays in any way you want. So if I were to do something like this and show you how that would kind of work over here, the length of the array is 4 because I said it was 4 right here. And now there's only one thing in the array, City of God, that sits at spot 3. So spot 3 would have City of God, and then here there would be nothing. And that's fine. If you want to, you can have an empty, and in the world of programming, this is actually useful sometimes. Sometimes you don't know what to put in an array until you get input from a user or something like that. And so the code that I have here, you don't have to populate every part of an array. You can just put in certain parts right away. And so if I were to run this, you should see just that one spot. So you see null, 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 and then you see City of God. So basically it's saying that no one's put anything here yet, here yet, here yet, and then they put something here. So hopefully after that you recognize a few things. Thing 1 is arrays are not a new data type like an int or a double or a Boolean or a string. It is a data structure that allows us to hold multiple values in one structure. We also now have seen how you can load information into an array. This line, for example, here loads a string into the 3rd spot of my words array. And I can also do that inside of a loop if I want to add things to every spot of an array, or certain spots of an array multiple times over and over again. Loops and arrays go hand in hand. And then this here is a line of code, or a loop of code, sorry, that basically spits out all of the information in an array, because if you try to spit out the array as a whole, it will not work. You'll get some garbage that you won't be able to understand. So that's one-dimensional arrays, and pretty soon we'll move on to two-dimensional arrays where you can expand your mind even more.